right, everyone. Hello, and welcome to the first screencast for this section of the course. In this screencast, this material for chapters 3 or in the Ch3Sc book. So in this screencast, we're going to be talking about different ways of aggregating preferences. So we have a group of people, and we need to say what the group wants to do, what the group chooses. All right. So how we go about aggregating those preferences is going to be important because it's not going to be. We're not going to get the same sorts of results we got from individual choice when we move to group choice. So social choice is when we have different alternatives preferred by different individuals, all right? And how can individual preferences be aggregated into a social preference over all the possible alternatives that they have? So a group is trying to decide, do we want to eat apples or oranges? Or the group is trying to decide, we want to go to lunch here or there. We want to have a tax rate of what? The group's trying to make a decision collectively. Almost up until this point in the course, all the decisions have been made individually. And so an individual just decides where does the marginal rate of substitution equal the price ratio, or what is the maximum utility I can get to my constraints, and they do that. So here things are going to be a little different because they have to make the choice as a group. All right. So X, Y, and Z here are going to denote different alternatives or different policies, or it could be different tax rates, it could be different levels of military spending, it could be where your group wants to go to lunch, it could be an allocation of resources in the society, but we're going to look at a case where we have three agents, Bill, Bertha, and Bob. All right, and they're going to be deciding which one do they want, X, Y, or Z, which alternative do they want as a group. So here is just a preference ordering for each of these agents. If you recall, we can also write this in a different way. We could say X, and then we could use the curly preferred to for Bill, to Y is preferred to by Bill, or putting his name on the preference because it's his preference, to Z. That ordering, X is strictly preferred to Y, is strictly preferred to Z. That's what this means here in this chart here. All right, and this is going to be a certain case we're going to look at. Call it case 1. All right. So these three have to decide as a group which do they want to pick, X, Y, or Z. Which thing do they want to do, or which tax rate do they want to have, or whatever it is that they're deciding over. Their choice set is X, Y, and Z. It's all the things they can choose from. Those are the alternatives available to them, and they're going to pick as a group which one they want. So they could take a vote, right? Well, how do they take a vote? Okay, there are lots of different ways to take a vote. We could use unanimity rule, meaning they all have to agree on what the choice is. We could use something called their top choice, right? Everybody's top choice, and then we use majority rule over the top choice. There's another common thing that we do in group decision making called pairwise majority rule, which means we run this versus this, and we take a majority rule vote, and the winner kind of stays. And then we pair it up against something else, we vote. That's pairwise majority rule, voting on two things at a time. All right, we could do it that way. Let's look at those three cases. All right, so here's Bill, Bertha, and Bob. And if we use unanimity rule, we can right away see that there is no group choice with unanimity rule because they all have a different top choice. So if we say, okay, everybody write down your top choice, and if we all agree, that's what we'll do. Well, if they all had similar preferences, then that might work. But for our group here, for this particular set of preferences, for this group, that won't work. Unanimity rule gives us no group choice. All right. What about majority rule by the top choice? So in other words, will everybody write down your top choice, and if one of those things gets a majority, right, meaning half plus 1, so that would be half would be 1.5. So if it gets over 1.5 votes, all right, it wins. Well, Bill votes for X, Bertha votes for Y, Bob votes for Z. Nothing gets more than 1.5 votes. So again, as we had with unanimity rule, majority rule by top choice also does not give us an outcome. So what about pairwise majority rule? Okay, well, let's run pairwise majority rule here. So first, let's run Y versus X. All right, so in Y versus X, Bill votes for X, Bertha votes for Y. She likes Y more than X. And Bob votes for Y. He likes Y more than X. So Y gets 2 votes. X gets 1 vote. Y beats X. All right. For, let's try the second one. Let's try the case. Let's run Y against Z. All right. So Bill likes Y more than Z. Bertha likes Y more than Z. And Bob likes Z more than Y. Z gets 2 votes. Y gets 2 votes. Z gets 1 vote. Y beats Z. All right. Now let's try the run Z versus X. All right. So Bill prefers X to Z. Bertha prefers Z to X. Bob prefers Z to X. So Z gets 2 votes. X gets 1 vote. So Z beats X. So here we do get a group choice. All right. Y wins using pairwise majority rule. All right. Y beats X. Y beats Z. Y wins. Y will defeat anything it goes up against. All right. So Y cannot be defeated using pairwise majority rule. All right. Y cannot be defeated using pairwise majority rule. So we have an outcome. We have a group choice. All right. So does the majority rule here? Well, sorta. Notice it's different majorities though. For Y beats Z, for Y beats X, that's Bertha, right, and Bob. They like it when Y beats X. But for when Y beats Z, that's Bill and Bertha. So the majority does prefer Y to anything else, but it's a different majority for each of these pairwise comparisons. So it's a strange thing to say that the majority, this is the will of the majority. There's no one majority that actually prefers Y to something it's paired against. There's this 2 different majorities who in these 2 cases prefer it. All right. So when we do group choice, we're going to find there are a lot of weird things like that. They're going to start coming up.